Good day, guys. I remain Terence, and we are going to be discussing about CSS positioning. So first of all, I'm going to start on my VS Code. Let's get into practical. I have this folder, and I'm going to create two files in it. Let me call it practice.html, and I'll also create the CSS. Let me call it practice.css, and I save. So I'm going to create the starter HTML, and I'm going to get the title as CSS positioning, and I'm going to also link my CSS file. So I have it here as link. My CSS file, the name is practice.css. I'm going to save. So let me put this side by side so that we can see what is happening. Let me open it using Lifesaver. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div. Let me call it div1. So in CSS there are 5 positions: position static, position fixed, position absolute, position relative, and position sticky. So by default, every HTML element is positioned static. For example, let me open this now. Okay, for example, this is an HTML element. Let's open this in a container. Let's create a container which we are going to have all our elements. So the first is, let's call it div1, and what we have here is, let's call it header, and save. So by default, every HTML element is position static. So by default, this is position static. Let's style it a little. We have first of all, let's give the body a light background color. Body background color of, let's call it let's give it something like this. Okay, and the div1, let's give it a background color. Div1, let's give it a background color of, black. And we're going to give it the text color of white. Okay, we are also going to give it a height of, let's say, 55 pixels. Okay, so by default, this element is positioned static. I would like us to give to make this our page scrollable by giving a padding button to our page. So let's go to the body. Let's give padding button to our body. Padding button of, say, 3000 pixels, and save. Now you can see our body is now scrollable. You can scroll. So this element by default is static. It doesn't move from here, but you can scroll. It's on the page, so you can scroll. So let's convert this element to position fixed. So we have position fixed, as simple as this, and save. So see how it is now. If I scroll now, see what happens if I scroll. The page is scrolling now, but it doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere because it's fixed. So this is handy when creating headers or sidebars. For example, let's convert this to a header now. Position fixed. This position fixed comes with 4 different values you can associate it with. You can see, for example, it's converted to position fixed now. You can see left of, let's say left of 0 means we want to make it 0 pixel from the right. For now it's having a gap here, but we want it 0 pixel from the right, from the left, sorry. So if we save this, it goes 0 pixel to the left. So if we say top 0, is going to be positioned 0 pixels from the top of the window. This is our window size, this is our window, this is our window. So the position fixed is relative to the window. So anything we are doing on fix is to the window. So top of 0 takes it 0 pixel from the top. So let me save this and you see it there. So if I now use right of 0, for example, right of 0 is going to position this 0 pixel from the right, and it is already positioned 0 pixel from the left. So it's going to stretch it. So let's use right of 0 and save. So you can see it's stretched. Now you can scroll this and it doesn't affect it. For example, let's add a line of text under our div. Let's call it another div, and lorem ipsum is a line of dummy text, and save. You can see what is happening. Let me make it double. Let me double it. Control C, V, and save. So this is a line of dummy text under our div. So you can see what is happening. This our div now is on our text because it has left the page. It is now on the window. It has left the page. It's now on the window. So it's now covering our text. The text is under. So for example, if I go back to my CSS and remove this positioning from this and save, see how it is now. I can scroll. If I scroll now, everything scrolls together. Let me double this box. Let me make 2 of it. Let me copy it. Control C and Control V to paste. I'll name this sidebar. Sidebar and save. So this is it. I'm going to give it div2. Let me call it the class div2, and I'm going to go to my CSS to style it as div2, and I'm going to give it background color of say green, and I'm going to give it a text color of say white, and save. And I'll also give it a height of 55, or let me give it a height of 100 pixels. 100 pixels. Now you see I have 2 divs here and none of them are positioned. So if we scroll, everything scrolls normally with the page. That is position static. Then if I give this div, this black div, position fixed, by uncommenting this, is position fixed, and left 0 pixel from the left, top 0 pixel from the top, and right 0 pixel from the right, and I save, Control S. You notice that this our green box, which is div2, now goes under. It now becomes the first element on this page. while this div1, which is the header, is now on the window. It leaves the page and is now on the window, so everything comes under it. So if I scroll, everything scrolls, but the div1, which is the header, doesn't scroll because it's now position fixed. This position fixed can also take other values here. For example, if I give it maybe 50 pixel right, 50 pixel, it tells it to give 50 pixels from the right, 50 pixels from the right, this black box. So if I save it, now it's 50 pixels from the right. Left can also do the same, and top can also do the same. Maybe left, I use 40 pixels from the left and save. It's now 40 pixels from the left, and also top can also be changed. Let's give it 80 pixels from the top and save. It's now 80 pixels from the top, but it is fixed, it doesn't move, it is on the window. So assuming I use bottom, of, let's say, give it bottom of 80 pixels, or let's say 70 pixels, and save, it doesn't change. That's because I've given it a height, this height of 55 pixels. This height is now restricting it from changing. Normally it's supposed to stretch, this is supposed to stretch. So if I remove this height and save, you see what happens. It's now, from the left is 40 pixels, from the top is 80 pixels, from the right it's 50 pixels, and from the bottom it's the bottom of the window is 70 pixels. So if I remove this button and save, it now takes the default size, which is the size of the text. So since I need to use it as a header, I'll put a size now, a height of my header, which is, I put it 55 pixels before, and save. But I want to change these values so that it looks more like a header by putting it 0 pixels from the left, 0 pixels from the top, and also 0 pixels from the right, and save. Now you see how it is, it has covered everything. Now I want us to convert this second div, we see here, to a sidebar. Let's put it at the side. So we're still going to use position fixed. So its own position fixed will be from the top to be 0 pixels, from the top to be 0 pixels, from the left also should be 0 pixels, and from the bottom, that's bottom, left, and top, bottom should be 0 pixels. You can just write 0 or 0 pixels and save. Now see what happens, it disappears. Where is my work? See what happens. Control S. It doesn't cover as we expected, and you should know why. That's because we've given it a forced width, a forced height of 100 pixels. So if we are using position, okay, we have not given it position, let's give it position fixed, and save. It's now position fixed left, but it doesn't stretch from top to bottom as we expected. That's because we've given it a forced height of 100 pixels. So the height is going to take is 100 pixels. Assuming we also gave it a width, for example, we gave it a width of a certain amount, say 70 pixels, and if we save this now, it's going to give it a width of 70 pixels actually, because we don't have it positioned to left and right at the same time. So it's going to obey this position, or this 70 pixels. So if we save, it's that 70 pixels. To confirm, we can increase it to 150 pixels and save. So you see it's actually affecting it. But now let's try to solve this issue of why it's not stretched to the bottom. That is just because of this height here. Remove this first height and use positioning to give it its height of top and bottom and save. Now we run into another issue where this sidebar is covering our header. What if we actually want our header to be on top while this sidebar should be under it? We do that by having a property called z-index. The higher the z-index, the element will now be on top. If the z-index is higher, that means the element will be on top. If both of them do not have z-index on them, that means the second element on it will have, which is div2, will now be on top. We now take preference to be on top. But now, for now, let's give our div1 a z-index of 100 and see what happens. Now div1, which is a header, is now on top. Let's give this a z-index of this our sidebar, a z-index of, I want you to see something, 99, and save. Nothing happens. Let's give it a z-index of, you see this our header is 100, but this is 99. Nothing happens. Let's give it a z-index of 101 and save. Now you see this one comes on top. So it's telling us that the higher the z-index, it gives it the preference to be on top. And z-index can range from 0 to any value. 0 is default. So if we don't see z-index here, we know the default is 0. It's taking a z-index of 0. So if this has a higher z-index than this, that means this will obviously be on top. This can be 2 and this can be 1. It doesn't matter what value you are giving it, but this should just be higher for it to be on top. So now we will notice that our sidebar is being covered. This right up for sidebar, this sidebar is being covered by this header. So what we can do is we can give it this sidebar a top of a certain pixel such that it starts from here. So if we are giving it a top, that it should be maybe 55 pixels from the top. I'm using 55 pixels because I know our header size, the header height is 55 pixels. So it's going to start from here after the header. So if I save it, start from here exactly. So if I scroll this my page now, you see my text are scrolling. But now this text is being covered by both the header and the sidebar. So I'm still going to use a method to bring this text to start somewhere around here and also to come down. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to give a padding top and a padding left, padding top and padding left to the body of my HTML document. That is the best practice. You can give it margin also, but the best practice is to give it padding top and padding left. So I'm going to give it a padding top of say 80 pixels and a padding right, a padding left of, since the size of this is 150, I can give it a padding left of 170 pixels and save. Now you see how it is. You can now scroll very well. So this is all about fixed positioning in CSS. So we're going to go to absolute positioning. Let's do position absolute. I'm going to add another div. I'm going to add another div here. Dot absolute. This is a div, and I'm going to call it box. Let me just call it box, because I'm going to make it to look like a box. This is it. This is box. Let me design it to look like a box. I'm going to give it dot absolute I'm going to give it a height of, let's say, 400 pixels, and also a width of 400 pixels, and I'm going to give it a background color of light blue, and I'll save. So this is the box I just added now. Okay, you can scroll as normal. So if I change this box now, the position of this box, let me use position absolute, and I save. See what absolute does. Absolute takes the box out of the window, but it's now on the page. You can scroll, but it's now on top. It takes it out of that window. Now the text which was under has gone up. Now you can actually position this, maybe top. You say top to 0, and the right 0. That's from the right. Distance from the right should be 0 pixels from the right. It's now positioned. It's at the top of this place. This my header is covering it. It's at the top and also at the right. So you notice that with absolute it gets positioned like fixed, but the difference is it can be scrolled. It's on the page. It can be scrolled. That is the difference between fixed and absolute. You can actually position it left, right, bottom. If we add a bottom here of let's call it 0, and save, and remove this height here, because if we are giving it top and bottom, we don't need to specify the height, and save. Now you can see that it has covered the top and the bottom, but you can scroll, whereas with fixed you cannot scroll. So I'm going to go back to my specific height of 400 pixels and save, and I'm going to give it a top of, let's call it 70 pixels, so that it can leave this top, this place. Control S. Okay. Okay, top 70. Let me make the box a little bit smaller. 200 pixels, and this also should be 200 pixels. Control S. Okay. Now I want to put another box inside of this, our big box here. Let me put another box and remove this text we are having here. I'm going to remove this text, and I'm going to put another box inside of this box we are having here. So let me say dot small box, and let me call it small, and save. I've removed this text, so I've put another box, and I'm going to style this box now. Dot small box, background color of red. Okay, let me just leave it this way. Now I want to position this small box. inside of this bigger box. So the way we do it is the parent, this is the bigger box is called the parent because this smaller box is inside. The parent will now have position relative and the small box will now have position absolute. Control S. This is how you use position relative. In a normal sense, position relative doesn't do anything. For example, if I come out this, if I remove this, Control X and save, you see position relative doesn't affect this bigger box. But if I put the position absolute inside position relative and save, this small box now will be positioned relative to this bigger box. Relative, that it's positioned within this bigger box. It doesn't come outside of this box. It's, if you say, for example, we say left, let's say top of let's give it 20, no, let me give it 40 pixels, and right, that's from the right, it should be, let's say, still 40 pixels from the right, or let's say 30 pixels from the right, and save. Now you see it is position relative to this bigger box, which is the parent box. So for you to use this relative in the bigger box and use absolute in the smaller box, you are telling the smaller box to be positioned relative to the bigger box or the bigger container or its parent. So this is how position relative works and position absolute. This position relative is also used maybe if we want to put an X here, a close button here. We want to position a close button here so that if you close, you can close this sidebar or you can open it. What we can do is we can go to our sidebar, give it a div, let me call it small box, for example, and I'll give it an X. This X, let me save. It's going to take the same formatting as this because it still has the same class of small box, so that's why it's red. That's why it is red. So if I take this small box now and position it, let me position it to top of, let me remove all of this and save. I'm going to position it left, right, 0, and save. See, it's here. Let me take it up a little. That means I'm going to say top 0 and save. Now if we use our JavaScript or our code to write, we can use this button, this as a button or as a close button, this X. So now we have positioned this inside of this sidebar, and this sidebar now is fixed. That's why it is actually affected by being fixed. But in case we don't want it to be affected like this other box, blue box here, this light blue box, you use the position relative on it. Now using the position relative doesn't really affect this box, it's still under its normal operation, but we have positioned this small box in it. So the next thing we are going to look at is position sticky. Now let me add a div. Let me add a div somewhere here. I'm going to add a div here. and call it sticky. Okay, so I'm going to add a paragraph here. Let's just write something that makes sense so we can see what happens. I'm going to add a paragraph here of Lorem Ipsum. Okay, let me just use that dummy text, this dummy text, and this is our sticky box, and save. I'm adding it inside one of these. I'm not supposed to add it inside one of those. I'm going to undo. Position sticky. I'm going to remove it out of this box. I don't want it to be inside our sidebar, so I'm going to put it under here, and I'm going to give it sticky box, and save. Okay, it's now outside. I'll give it, let me add the paragraph on top. Paragraph, this is a sticky box below, and save. Now I want to style this sticky box. The class is sticky, so I'm going to call the class here dot sticky, and I'm going to say background color of light, let me give it a color of light pink, and save. Okay, and I can give it a color of white, and let me also give it a border of 2 pixels, solid red, and save. Okay, now I'm going to change the position of this sticky box to sticky. So position sticky. So if I say position sticky and I say top, that it should be sticky maybe 90 pixels from the top, 90 pixels, and save. If I start scrolling, once it reaches 90 pixels from the top, it's going to stop, and every other thing will be scrolling. So you see what happens, it's going to stop, and when every other thing scrolls until the last item passes it, and this is the last item, this is where the last item ends, not here, because this is where it starts. So the last item until it passes it. Let me put a dummy text at the bottom so that we see what happens. Lorem Ipsum. Okay, I've put dummy text at the bottom. So you see I'm scrolling, and you see how the sticky works. I can also change this sticky to be, say, let's say 0 pixels from the top. Once it reaches 0 pixels from the top, it should stop. Now it's under. Let me give it a Z index of something higher. Let's say Z index. What did we give to the header? We gave it Z index of 2, so we can give this Z index of 3 or anything higher than 3, and save. So once I scroll, it's now on top, and once it reaches that 0 pixel which we specified here, 0 pixel from the top, it stops, and every other thing will be scrolling. So that is how sticky works.